Brendan Gentili, the alternate travel guide. The alternate travel guide, Brendan Gentili.
You'd be hard-pressed to find anyone in this room who doesn't enjoy world traveling. Let me prove it to you. How many people in this room have traveling as a hobby of theirs and consider enjoying traveling very much? Pretty much everyone in this room, that's what I thought. But if you're like me, you probably would have traveled in a pretty standard way, which is you thought of a country you wanted to visit, you find the capital of that country, book a plane ticket, then read a travel guide about the major sites in that city. You visit the major sites and then you head home. If this sounds like something you do, I'm here to tell you something. I believe this method is incomplete. Good afternoon, fellow Toastmasters and guests. I believe that this method is incomplete because it doesn't offer a true full immersion into the culture and the country that you are visiting. I'm going to share with you today my ideas on an alternative travel approach. It's quite simple, actually. It involves getting out of the major cities and not buying into everything that the travel book says and deviating from it. In other words, I'd like you to take the road less traveled. I've been lucky enough in my life to start traveling from a young age. It started off with trips packed into the back of a 7-seater van, all seats full with my family, to places like Ottawa, Montreal, or New York. It's since progressed to trips to Western Europe, where I was able to visit cousins in Italy. And it's also gone to the extremes of Southern Africa, where I was able to climb some of the most incredible and awe-inspiring sand dunes in all of the world. It is here where I discovered something on my trip to Africa. It was here where there weren't tourists for miles around that I could see. I was in cities, and it was myself and my family, and I couldn't see anyone around me that was a local for hundreds of meters away. And I came back from this trip with a feeling of completeness, and I began to rethink travel in the standard way I've been doing it before, of going to the major cities and the major sites, and I started to think that this is incomplete. And I'm going to prove to you today that my method will offer more completeness to your travel. Water, water everywhere, and not a drop to drink. I'm going to change up this phrase a little bit to say tourists, tourists everywhere, and still not a drop to drink because the water is too expensive. Has this ever happened to you where you went to a major city such as the Londons, the Paris, the Romes, and there's tourists everywhere? It's understandable. These are incredible cities. Everyone wants to go see them. So every year, millions of tourists flock to these cities. The problem with this is that I don't think it creates a true culture in that major city. Has it ever happened to you where you've been in big crowds or big lines waiting to go see an attraction? You almost feel more like a cattle being herded than an actual person. Have you ever had that feeling? I know I have in these cities. And in addition to this, sometimes tourist traps are created in these cities where the cost of having a meal or buying a souvenir skyrockets to take advantage of unknown travelers. It's in these cities where I don't think you experience the true culture. Just how could you? This many tourists changes people. I'm sure it's happened to us going to Banff. We see all the tourists around, we kind of get fed up a little bit. We're not as nice as we would be in the city. I believe that happens in these major cities as well. It's also here where you might be likely to be scammed by a taxi driver, or like happened to a friend of mine, have your wallet stolen from your back pocket as you're looking up at the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. I truly don't believe that this is the true culture of Italy. It's hard to find the culture of Italy in Rome at the Roman Colosseum when, if you look around, you see more foreigners than you do local Italians. For me, Italy was found in the small Italian cities where you were able to get a decent meal for only a few euros, and you can experience the true hospitality and friendliness of local Italians. I think that is only getting out of major cities that you can experience this true culture and get a decent price meal. Now, major cities are where major tourist sites are found, and it is here that I agree with the travel book method, where one must go into major cities if you want to see the major sites. But I'd like to add a little caution here as well, and I'd like you to think a little bit. Are you going to see these sites because your friends told you to, or because you know these are the things you have to mark off your list? Do you truly enjoy actually going to some of these sites? An example for me is when I went to go see the Mona Lisa. The memory of the Mona Lisa for me is a huge crowd of people in front of it, all trying to get their selfie with the Mona Lisa. And I was thinking to myself, did they just come to take a selfie and leave? Like, do they know what this is about, really? For me, Paris was bike rides on winding cobblestone streets, over narrow bridges, ending off on the beautiful, expansive Seine River, watching boats go by at night. So for me, I try to do more of these experiences in other countries I go to visit, instead of going to the major sites just because I have to go see them. I encourage you to think of this as well. Finally, I think that only doing the travel book method can cause you to miss some hidden gems. This point hits close to home quite literally. Think about where we live, the city of Calgary. Now imagine you were a tourist coming to Canada. Do you think you would have stopped in Calgary? I bet you most of you wouldn't have. You probably would have gone to Toronto, maybe to Vancouver, and you would have skipped right over Calgary. But don't you think that Calgary deserved your visit? After all, we all chose to live here, likely because we enjoy living here. I'd like you to think how many Calgarys you missed throughout your travels in other countries, the Calgarys of the world that you could have missed by only going to major cities. So the next time you plan a trip, plan to go to the major city and see the sights, but I encourage you to get outside of the major city, visit small towns, maybe a town you've never heard of before, or even the second largest major city. It is here where I think you'll be able to find the true culture of the city you're going to. You'll be able to get a decent priced meal without all the tourist crowds. You'll be able to see some lesser known sites or do the things that you enjoy doing. And you also might even find a hidden gem of what you're visiting. If it's too late this year for the trip, your next trip, maybe plan a trip after that. But in the words of Robert Frost, 2 roads diverged in the woods, and I took the one less traveled, and that made all the difference. I hope I've convinced you today that you should take the road less traveled, because I truly believe that that'll make all the difference in your travel experience.